Grow up, you entitled, sensitive snowflakes. Get a job. The world doesn't owe you anything.
If you're a young Zoomer or millennial watching this, you've undoubtedly been told this line by your delusional boomer parents more times than you can count. This isn't actually true. The world actually does owe you something for a pretty obvious reason everyone seems to overlook, but we'll get into that a bit later. Let's for now accept their premise that the world doesn't owe you anything, and let's talk about the flip side of that coin, which is that if the world doesn't owe you anything, then you don't owe the world anything either. That includes your work and your labor. You're always being made to feel bad for not having a job or having a less than ideal job, but why? You don't owe this society a job in the first place. This is especially true since this society screwed up its own economy long before you were even born. But even if it were a perfect world with a perfect economy, you still don't owe this society your work or labor. You never did. If you want to work, by all means, go ahead. But you don't owe it to society to work. There is a huge difference. You may have recently heard of the term NEET. It's an acronym that stands for Not in Employment, Education, or Training. It's kind of society's way of telling you, hey, either work hard and be a money printing ATM machine for us, or we'll hardcore shame you for being a loser. And this, to be honest, is pretty entitled. Actually, that's being generous. This is the literal epitome of entitlement. If you want people to work for you, it's on you to give them enough reason and incentive to work. You're not entitled to their labor. Pay them better, provide better working conditions / benefits. I don't care how you do it, but it is your responsibility to do it. Paying them dog shit wages and calling them NEETs for not wanting to work for your dog shit is the most whiny, narcissistic, entitled, spoiled brat behavior ever that this society is guilty of. It's so crazy how literally all the things this society accuses Gen Z of is really just a reflection of itself. I've been doing YouTube for several months now, and it's been an up and down journey. Some videos have been successful, others not so much, but throughout it all, there's one very important lesson that I've learned. I'm not entitled to people watching or subscribing to my YouTube channel. If I want to succeed, I have to earn it. I have to make better videos that people actually want to watch. This is just the normal, responsible mindset of an adult. But imagine if I were a spoiled, entitled brat like this society. Imagine if instead of just putting in the time, to actually make better videos, I went off and started calling everyone who doesn't watch my YouTube videos, novomits. Not a viewer of my YouTube channel.
Damn, you're right, Phil. Remember in the early days when our videos sucked and we weren't getting that many views? Imagine if I were to be like, hey, I know my videos aren't that great, but you're a navomits for not watching them.
Yeah, exactly, Chris. That's exactly right. That's literally what this society is doing by calling those who don't want to work for their dog shit wages a NEET.
Damn, I never thought of it that way. It really is crazy how spoiled and entitled this society is.
I know, man. And the worst thing about this is they somehow have the nerve to call you entitled while they're the true entitled snowflakes. I mean, they literally think they're entitled to 65 years of labor from you from the time you're born, all while they're too lazy to even fix the economy that they themselves ruined. I really can't think of anything more spoiled, entitled, and narcissistic than that.
It's not your fault that you are a burden to your parents. That's a burden they signed up for and requested that they didn't have to. You didn't consent to being born. You didn't ask to be born or request them or this world. Telling you are a burden on your parents is narcissistic gaslighting and blame shifting. They are trying to narcissistically scapegoat you for their dumbass decision to have kids they knew they couldn't afford and didn't have shit for before they even had them. And they automatically put the kid in a bad position for no real good justifiable reason at all. The fuck? You don't owe your parents, and you're not obligated to love or tolerate them if they are genuinely not good people.
This was a great comment from our good old friend Cyclops. Shout out to you once again, sir. And the thing is, everything he said here applies not just to your parents, but on a much, much wider scale to society as well. We're constantly being shamed as being a burden to society if we don't work. But this is a burden that society asked for and requested for that they didn't have to. Remember in the beginning when I said this society actually does owe you something? That is because just like your parents, society did in fact ask you to be born. Chris, you actually made a great video about this, didn't you?
That's right, I did.
Okay, Chris, take it away, my friend.
I just thought of the best argument yet for universal basic income. Trolls in the comments have been saying society doesn't owe you anything, but this is objectively false. Society does owe you something. And here's why. Society did actually ask you to be born. Consider the fact that every developed country now is complaining about low birth rates. It's clear they're desperate for more future labor machines to keep their joke of a system running. They're now doing everything they can to beg people to have more kids. This is the literal definition of asking you to be born. So, since society did, in fact, ask you to be born, it does owe you a universal basic income to cover at least your basic living expenses. Asking to create a human life, then refusing to pay for it is the epitome of entitlement and irresponsibility.
Now, I can already sense all the delusional boomers and corporate shills getting so worked up and sensitive in the comments. It's so funny how they champion themselves as the facts over feelings group when they themselves get all up in their feelings and can't handle facts. I guarantee they're going to throw a massive hissy fit over everything I said in this video, even though everything I said is a fact. It is a fact that you did not ask to or consent to being born. It is a fact that this society did, in fact, ask you to be born. They're doing it every day as we speak. And it is a fact that if the world doesn't owe you anything, you don't owe the world a damn thing either. And that includes your labor. Okay, technically, that last part was actually an opinion, but whatever. You guys get the point. I believe the fundamental reason we're so depressed and miserable these days is because our whole lives were built on the faulty assumption that we owe society something. You feel bad for not having a job only because you were brainwashed by this narcissistic, entitled society that you owed it a job in the first place. But you don't. If you want to work and you are one of few people who legitimately enjoy your job, then by all means, go for it. But you don't owe it to them to work. There's a huge difference. In the same way, I'm not entitled to YouTube views from this society. This society is not entitled to your labor. If they want you to work, tell them to create better jobs with better pay and working conditions so that you actually have reason to work. But it is the absolute height of hypocrisy that they're too lazy to fix the economy that they themselves ruined, and yet somehow have the nerve to call you lazy for not wanting to work in it.